Vietnamese economy is one of the fastest growing economies on earth.
Not so long ago, when people heard Vietnamese, they often thought of the boat people, refugees who left there in large numbers after the fall of Saigon in 1975. For 20 years, this was the common image. Desperate people escaping hardship. But times have changed. Many former refugees have returned to seek new careers and start businesses. 50 years ago, though, Vietnam was a war-turned country beginning a painful reunification process.
Sanitation is the island's biggest problem. The beaches littered with refuse, becoming a breeding ground for disease.
Today, it's modernizing rapidly, growing its economy, population, and industries, positioning itself to become Asia's next economic powerhouse. Welcome to Peak Visibility, and today let's find out how Vietnam quietly rose from the shadows of war to become Asia's next superpower. As reported by CNBC, out of all the countries on Earth, Vietnam will see the sharpest incline over the next decade. Many countries are ramping up manufacturing efforts in Vietnam, and this can be attributed to some of the Trump administration's policies. But here's the twist. Some of these Vietnamese exports are secretly Chinese goods in disguise. They still have the projected fastest growth in the next decade, so what's the big deal? Well, what makes this story so incredible is that just in a single generation, Vietnam went from one of the poorest countries in the world to a middle-income economy. To really understand how crazy Vietnam's rise was, you must understand their history, the perpetual rise of war, and how it all turned around for them. Vietnam is young, growing, and anything feels possible. But it wasn't always like this, though. 35 years ago, Vietnam was one of the poorest places in the world, because when the war ended in 1975, their economy was among the weakest, and growth within their government was extremely slow.
But worse than that, for Vietnamese refugees, we also came to America with, especially for people who came here in 1975, we came here as losers. We came here because we had lost the war. We lost our home, we lost our family, we lost our future.
This 10-year period between 1975 and 85 became known as the subsidy time in Vietnam, as government subsidies barely became enough to keep millions of people alive. It's estimated during this period, 70% of Vietnam's population lived below the poverty line. Many starved, struggled to live, and worse, many died. It's estimated that the country's GDP per capita was extremely low, struggling to reach even $200 per year. But in 1986, everything changed. You see, the government started a reform called Doi Moi. Now, don't think that's how you pronounce it. I'm AI, so they're still working out the kinks. It's pronounced
đổi mới,
which means renovation. They began moving away from that strict government control and allowed the economy to work more like a free market, where prices and products are decided mostly by what people want to buy and sell. This is called supply and demand. Because of these changes, Vietnam's economy grew a lot. Back then, the average person only made about $200 a year, but now it's around $4,000 a year. That's 13 times more money in just a few decades. But the story isn't just about numbers, it's about mindset. The Vietnamese people adapted, innovated, and worked tirelessly to pull themselves out of poverty. The country invested in education, infrastructure, and global trade, while also embracing technology and foreign investment. Factories began popping up, exports surged, tourists returned, and cities like Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh became buzzing hubs of energy, culture, and business. Farmers became entrepreneurs. Young people flooded into schools and universities, eager to learn skills that would open new doors. Engineers, coders, and creatives began shaping a modern economy, one step at a time. The government began investing heavily in education, creating a generation of young, skilled workers.
It has already increased more than 30 times over, and the Vietnamese students rank among the best students in the world.
But in 2000, everything changed. Vietnam's economy was on a fast track, growing even quicker than most Asian countries other than China and India. As a result, this growth had attracted many big foreign firms like Nike and Adidas. These two companies were drawn by the availability of low-skilled labor costs. They weren't alone, though. Samsung, Intel, and Apple soon followed, setting up massive operations and making Vietnam a key link in the global supply chain. But this sudden rise wasn't just about cheap labor or good timing. It was also shaped by major events happening around the world.
President Trump saying this: if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, April the 8th, the United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50% effective April 9th. He goes on to say that additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meetings with us will be terminated.
When President Trump imposed 25% tariffs on all Chinese imports, thousands of companies sought escape routes, and Vietnam had three special things China couldn't offer: low labor cost, no direct confrontations with the US, and trade pacts with both the East and West. As a result, this is why those major brands moved their manufacturing hubs. But the crazy thing is, that was just the first wave. On April 9, 2025, Trump announced a 90-day suspension of the 46% tariffs on Vietnamese exports. It was booming because within days, land prices in key industrial zones spiked 18%, and order from retailers to Vietnamese factories rose by nearly 40%. But there's an underlying thing behind this boom, because not all of these factories are Vietnamese. Many Chinese companies are accused of using Vietnam as a loophole to avoid US tariffs. Here's how it works. A container shipped from China arrives at a Vietnamese port. The goods are unloaded, slightly modified or not at all. They are relabeled Made in China and shipped to America. This practice is called country of origin washing. It's estimated that over $7 billion worth of Chinese goods may have entered the US through such schemes in 2024 alone. Even high-up people working in the US government have called out these tactics. Peter Navarro, former White House trade advisor, called out China directly. China is using Vietnam as a trade cloaking device. It's tariff fraud, plain and simple. Vietnam's transformation is one of the most remarkable stories of the 21st century. In just one generation, it's gone from being known mainly for war, poverty, and refugees to becoming one of the fastest growing economies in the world. That journey wasn't easy. It took bold reforms, a willingness to adapt, and a relentless drive from the Vietnamese people. But while the economic boom is impressive, the deeper story is about resilience, about how a country so deeply affected by decades of conflict found a way to not just survive, but thrive. Today, Vietnam stands at a crossroads. It's benefiting from global shifts in manufacturing, and its youth are more educated, connected, and ambitious than ever before. Still, challenges remain. The risk of being caught in trade disputes, over-reliance on foreign companies, and the ethical concerns around practices like country of origin washing could slow progress. But if Vietnam's past tells us anything, it's that this nation knows how to turn obstacles into opportunity. The next decade will be critical. With smart leadership, continued innovation, and a focus on fairness and sustainability, Vietnam could become more than just a manufacturing hub. It could be a model for developing nations everywhere. From war-torn to world stage, Vietnam's rise isn't just economic, it's a powerful reminder of what's possible when a nation refuses to give up on itself.